remember every single detail of my life changing. The hot Somali sun blinding me as I climb into the back seat of the Land Cruiser. My lunch of goat and rice and how I turn my nose up to it, not knowing it would be my last real meal for months. I can feel the soft fabric of my headscarf. I can smell the sweat of the security guard sitting next to me. The very same man who in a few moments will hand me over to a group of Somali pirates in exchange for $100,000. For me, as a humanitarian aid worker, traveling through villages in Somalia is just another day at work. After finishing my staff training for this field mission, we climb into the vehicle, we head back to the guest house. I do normal things like send a few work emails and wonder what I'm going to have for dinner. And then everything changes. Mud splashes up all over my windows and my windshield, and as I sit there wondering what kind of jerk drives like that, the crack of the butt of an AK-47 on the car hood, an angry man dressed in a police uniform pulls open my door, puts a gun to my head, and screams at the driver to drive. I don't know who he is. I don't know what he wants. I don't know where he is taking me. I don't know what is happening. And as my head slams against the window and I'm tossed like a rag doll into the back, I realize I do know one thing, and that's that no matter how this thing pans out, my life will never be the same again. Because whatever this is bad. It is so bad that I have nothing to compare it to. What follows can only be described as impossible because I am a hostage. It is blazing hot in the desert during the day and freezing cold at night, forced to sit under trees and bushes all day and sleep out in the open. I am constantly afraid I am going to be raped. I am constantly afraid I'm going to be sold. I am surrounded by 20 to 30 armed men at all times. Everything I know about life has changed. I am no longer Jessica Buchanan, humanitarian, teacher, wife, daughter, human. I'm simply a commodity. An American dollar sign that needs to be kept just alive enough so that I can be cashed in. And as my new reality unfolds before me, I realize I have a job to do. And that job is simply to survive. Survival means different things to different people. But what I've come to realize is that regardless of the context, it is very human to be able to figure out how to survive change when it has been thrust upon us. The first thing I learned is that change is the author of our stories. Because if you think about it, no great story has ever come about without significant change. Now, sometimes we choose that change through our sheer will and determination, forcing it to happen. Other times that change chooses us and waits to see what we will do. In some of the darkest moments of my captivity, I would say to myself, this is just a chapter in the story of your life. You'll get through this and then you can move on. But what I understand now in the aftermath is that change doesn't want to just write a chapter, it wants to write the entire book. But how that story is told is entirely up to you, because change doesn't get to have the final say. It doesn't ask your permission. It certainly requires a response. According to studies conducted by researchers at BetterUp, we are six times more likely to demonstrate strong resilience if we can identify our own autonomy and choice in the middle of our change. It took me 40 days in my captivity to realize I was actually being presented with some interesting choices. I realized I had three things that I was probably never going to have again in my life. I had time. God knows how much time I had. I had solitude. The desert is a beautifully quiet place. And well, I'm a hostage, so I had nothing to do. So I made a choice. I decided people quit their jobs and travel halfway around the world to go out and find themselves, and maybe this was my chance. And I could even sit here and do it for free if I didn't take into account that $45 million ransom demand on my head. So I got busy and I made a work plan for myself. And I decided that I was going to take my life in increments, my entire 32 years, and I was going to divide it up, and I was going to remember every single thing I could remember that had ever happened to me in that 32 years. So for example, one of my first memories is when I was 4 years old, and my mother took me to the movie theater for the first time. We went to go see Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It was a hot July night in southern Indiana. I could remember how suntanned her arms were and the little freckles. I could feel the texture of the popcorn in my mouth, and I could taste the sweetness of the soda that we were sharing. I could even picture the shape of her teeth when she laughed. And one by one, the memories of the most beautiful life played before me, like the scenes in that movie. And I was able, in the middle of all of that bad, to find some good. I was able to let go of some hurts and bury grudges. I was able to ask for forgiveness. And I was able to forgive. And when I had remembered everything I could possibly remember, I began to plan and dream. Now, I had no idea if I was going to survive to see those dreams, but it gave me a goal. It gave me something to work toward. And more than anything, it gave me a place in the middle of all of that chaos where I alone was in charge. Change is our proof of life. Now, I don't expect everybody to understand exactly what that phrase means. Maybe you've heard it in a movie. Maybe you've read it in a book. The reality is there are very few people who actually live through giving their proof of life. Now, a proof of life video is when your captors prop you up in front of a video camera and they command you to ask the government or your families for more money. Maybe they want someone else or something else in exchange, and then what they'll do is distribute the video to all of the news outlets so everybody can watch you plead for your life. The point of a proof of life video is just that, to prove that you are indeed still alive so that negotiations can move forward. This is my proof of life video. I'm saying my name is Jessica. I am safe. I am alive. I'm being treated well. We want to implore the American military not to attack, and our families need to do more, as well as the government financially, because things are not moving in the right direction. On the night that I was kidnapped, we were driven for hours out into the desert. We would drive, we would stop, we would change personnel, we would drive, we would stop and change vehicles. And after driving for half of the night, we were forced out of the car and ordered to walk out into the desert. I am surrounded by dozens of armed men. I believe that I am walking out to my own execution. It is the single most terrifying moment of my life. And it's almost like I'm having an out-of-body experience as I walk and I trip and I fall and I pick myself back up. I can remember at one point feeling blood trickle down the front of my leg. And it was sticky and it was warm and it would gather in between my toes. And I remember thinking, yes, this is good, because this pain, I can still feel it. It hurts, and it means that I am still alive. Because when things aren't changing, we are no longer living. We can look to the past. We can look to nature. We can look to everything that is happening in the world right now and know that that is a fundamental truth. And then when you are in the middle of surviving something that you never thought you would possibly survive, inevitably something is going to change again. It's day 93, and I am still living in the desert, and I am sick. I have a urinary tract infection that has moved into a kidney infection. I'm in some of the most intense pain I've ever experienced in my life. I can no longer stand upright. I'm hallucinating for fever. I am asking for medicine, for a doctor. I need an IV. I need to be moved out of the desert into a hospital. It's no use. I move my mat out into the middle of the field like I've done all the other 92 nights before, and I fall into a restless sleep. I'm awoken a few hours later by a rustling in the tall grass that I am sleeping in. Not 30 seconds goes by and the night just erupts into automatic gunfire. And all I can think to myself is no more changes. Because in my mind, I think I'm being kidnapped by another group, possibly Al-Shabaab, Islamic extremists. And if that's the case, there is no hope for my survival. I'm hearing some of the most horrific sounds all around me. Men are breathing their last breaths. I try to make myself as small as I possibly can and just disappear into the ground. Suddenly, I feel hands on my arms and on my legs, and I try to fight back. And then I hear the voice of a young American man. And he knows my name. Jessica. Jessica. It's okay. We're the American military. You're safe now. We're going to take you home. And in my shock, all I can say over and over again is, "You're American? You're American!" He says, "We've been watching you for 93 days. We know how sick you've been." He hands me a bottle of water and some medicine. One of them picks me up and carries me to a place of safety. And one by one, dozens of soldiers make a shield to protect me. Tears stream down my face as the message is relayed to me that by order of President Obama, the country's most elite SEAL Team 6 had been sent out to rescue a school teacher from Ohio. And because of honor, President Obama picked up the phone that night and made a phone call to my father to let him know that his girl was safe. She was alive. She was coming home. surviving change is to understand that nothing lasts forever. Not the good, not the bad. Things take the time they need to take, no more, no less. It took me 93 days in the desert to trust that change is the author of my story, leading me to my life's purpose, because I get to have the final say. And change was and always will be proof that I am very much still alive.